Good morning and welcome to day one of the masterclass Emotion by Design. I'm so excited to have you here. Let me get my computer all lined up so that I can see what is happening while it's happening. Okay, so let's start just at the very beginning with a little information about human design itself. Welcome to the masterclass, and let's get you slightly centered on what this is all about. So human design is the mechanics of how you operate. It is how your physical body filters universal energy. So in astrology, you hear a lot of talk about transits and planets and the effects of different things. Human design helps you understand how your body actually filters that information. And that is the mechanics of understanding how you operate in this physical space. Okay? What I want to assure you is that everyone has all of the chart. There's not, oh, you only have the parts that are colored in, or you don't have that part, or there's some type of interpretation, right? Everyone has all of the chart. The chart just helps you understand how you filter through each center and each gate. Your body graph is the blueprint to you, and no two body graphs are identical. And some of the factors in your body graph will explain to you why things come more naturally and then what things will need more attention. So I hope that's a great place to start with getting the ground rules of how it works, right? So in human design, there are 4 aura types, and those 4 aura types are generators, who are the builders, and they are people who have a defined sacral system. There are subsets of generators called pure generators and manifesting generators, but the whole group is generator. They are the life force of the planet, and they are here to respond to things. And each aura type is going to have a way that it is impacted by the centers we're going to discuss. The next group, generators are about 70% of our population. The next group are the projectors, and they are the energetic guides. That's about 20% of the population, and they are here to engage in life with life when they're recognized for their skill set or for what they're bringing, and then invited to share that. Their gift to the world, projector's gift, is understanding and bringing guidance. The third group are manifestors, and manifestors are currently about 9% of the population, though early tracking and indications are suggesting that that number is growing. And they are here to inform and take action. Initiating and getting things started is their gift to the world. And then the fourth energy type are reflectors. And reflectors are the discerners. And their ability to discern is their gift to the world. They are 1% of the population. They are the only energy type, aura type, that is connected directly to the moon. And so for them, They need to take time to engage in a lunar cycle process for living and for decision making. So that is a brief overview of the 4 types. And so your aura helps inform what your strategy is. Half of all people are emotionally defined. And I know this. And hold on, because what I don't know off the top of my head, so let me look it up, is the percentage of the population that is spleenically defined, which I think is a fair question. Heart center, sacral center. Solar plexus. So 45% of the population is undefined, and the other 55% is defined in their splenic center. Okay, let me see. Okay, so let me do this because I've got folks asking great questions like, hey, where do I grab that chart? So perfect, perfect. That's where you grab that chart. Okay. So these are important things to understand, right? 70% of people fall into the segment of generator. And so about half of those people have emotional definition, and about half of them, a little more than half, will have splenic definition. And in that is literally life force energy behind the movement of these centers we're going to talk about. So I hope that that makes sense for you, right? So the spleen center is not only about fear, but it's about timing, and it carries the energy of right timing when responding. We can also use fear as a motivator, but that is not sustainable. So let's tag all of the people. That didn't occur to me earlier. Achoo! Woo! And whoever is available will hop on, right? And then we're dealing with emotional authority, right? And that's really one of the big players right now and today. And when the solar plexus is defined in someone's chart, end of story, they are an emotional authority. An emotional authority is rooted in feeling rather than thinking. And it's by feeling that the emotional authority can be experienced. It's by feeling that the emotional authority gets clarity. And I really want to be clear in this because I want people to know emotional authority never feels certain Unlike a splenic authority, and if someone's a splenic authority and they know right now, an emotional authority is you're pretty sure it's the right thing to do and that's going to be the best you're going to get, right? It can feel very, very, very clear to the point of you believing it to be certain. But emotions are always in movement. And because of that, we need to be aware of how they operate. Okay? So, that is the basic understanding of human design and how this is all fitting together, right? Regardless of what your type is, if you have a defined solar plexus, you're an emotional authority. And in your chart, we're going to dive into how you are emitting your emotional wave. If you are splenically defined without the emotional center, you're probably a splenic authority. That's about 45% of people. And we're going to talk about how that particular energy gets pushed out into the collective field. So those are the two things that we've discussed. Good morning, Anita. So I started just a few minutes ago, and it's okay. In my getting started, it did not occur to me to tag everyone. And so now that I've done that, they're probably going to show up. In the beginning was kind of just a welcome, and I've gone over the basic mechanics of human design, the basic functions of the spleen and solar plexus. So let me get on to a little bit of housekeeping. I am going to be opening up a file, and in that file, I'm going to put some things in there that I suggest for you. There are some meditations that will be loaded on there. There will be some things to read. And there will also be people who offer services that I think are compatible, are people that I have a high regard for, people that I have worked with. And so if you're going to look for additional support during this time, and you're looking for emotional support, emotional clearing, health and nutrition support, those kind of things, there's going to be a big file that's going to have those, and who I'm referring, right, for the people who know the stuff. So that's another I'm providing in this. So back to our centers, right? Our splenic center is about our physical body consciousness. It is about full existential living. It is about spontaneity. It is health and well-being in our immune system. And with the level of emotion and news and stress that we are under currently globally, it's really going to be important for us to tune in and learn and understand how to help this function at its most optimum, right? So that we can stay healthy, we can stay aware, we can release fear, we can work through our instincts of flight and fight in a way that serves the greater whole, right? Because understand that when you are defined, you are pushing these things out in waves to the collective consciousness. And when you're open, you are taking in the emotions and the projections of other people, and you're amplifying them. So not only are they feeling what you're feeling when they're around you, they're feeling it at a whole different level. And so being in a place of mindfulness and intention with your own energy is going to help the collective field overall. The solar plexus system is extremely powerful. The solar plexus system is actually one of the biggest impacts to collective vibration. And even more specifically, and this is not one type being better than another, they're all different, right? But when you have a defined sacral, so life force energy pushing behind what else you've got going, it adds a whole other level of impact to other beings. So understand that especially those who fall into the category of generator, you really need to get it together, because you're having the biggest physical energetic impact on a wider group of people, because defined sacral power behind your emotions amplifies it. So the solar plexus is about spirit consciousness. It is about emotional and social awareness. It is about passion and desire. And it is about abundance of spirit. So I address that in the beginning. When I say sacral, I want people to understand that I talk about the 4 types. And if you are a manifesting generator, when I talk about generator, I'm talking about you. So anyone who is a generator or a manifesting generator has a defined sacral. And those are the people who have, number 1, are the largest population at 70%. And number 2, literally have the biggest energetic impact on others, because life force energy pushing behind everything else just gives it a lot more power. And so those are the things I want you to know. And this is really the important piece. And it is not to say that every type doesn't impact the people that's around them. They do. But we impact people differently based on our type. And that's something else to be aware of. Everyone's having impact, right? Absolutely everyone is having impact. So I want to give a little more information today, like about the 2 different centers. They're awareness centers. And I want to be clear when I talk to you kind of about the awareness centers, right? The ajna, the spleen, and the solar plexus are the awareness centers in human design. So let's get into just a little bit about what awareness is about. It's about the knowing without knowing. It is about the knowing intuitively. It is about feeling into that and understanding those things, right? So ajna is about mental awareness. And right now, it's important, but the ajna is never connected directly to enough energy that it's causing these powerful waves in the same way that your solar plexus and your spleen are. The ajna is really impacting personally at the highest level, right? And it is about mental consciousness, conceptualizing, interpreting answers as opinions, concepts, and theories. Hey, Sophia, go ahead and stay. Right now is kind of setting the groundwork. You'll want to maybe listen a little bit. I've talked about the resources that are going to be available that I'm posting. I'm just kind of today going through the foundation of how these parts work and why focusing on the spleen and the solar plexus currently are super important. They're part of the 3 awareness center system we have. And now I'm discussing the ajna, which is kind of the thought part of awareness, right? Conceptualizing, interpreting, answers as opinions, concepts, and theories. And that's how we're taking all of this information, right? We're reading it, we're hearing it, we're talking about it, we're seeing it. We're taking it all in, but then it's moving through our physical form. And that's the part we need to be aware of. And The splenic center is associated with our lymph system, T cells. We are always alert in a way that perhaps you haven't thought about. We're always smelling, hearing, tasting. We are always sort of in an awareness of what's going on around us. Oh, I think I smell something burning. Oh, waking up before an alarm goes off because your body intuitively feels that it's almost that time. The spleen is working in that way all of the time. And then the other part is the emotional solar plexus, which is really spirit energy, right? It's emotional and social awareness, passion and desire, abundance of spirit, feelings, mood, sensitivity. It is associated with the lungs, the kidney, the pancreas, the prostate gland, and the nervous system, right? So all of these parts of us that are currently receiving all of this collective energy, right? Translating it and interpreting it and informing our behavior. And what we want to do is be in a place of response and not reaction. We want to be in a place where we're really being conscientious about how we are behaving as these energies move through us. And that's what this is about, to help you understand from your chart exactly how this operates for you. So again, as I've said, I want you to have your chart available. That's important because over the next few days, as we talk specifically through each center and what each center does and how each center does it, we're going to talk through the gates, and you're going to be able to look at your chart and know, yes, I have this gate and it's defined and I consistently experience it, and here's how I can start to recognize that, and here are things I can do to work with that. Or you're going to look at your chart and go, oh, I'm not defined there. I don't have that consistently. That means I need to have a level of awareness that when I'm feeling something that's kind of like that, I'm picking it up from someone else. I'm getting this energy from outside of me. Not only am I getting it from outside of me, I'm amplifying it, and it's someone else's energy, right? And that's, I mean, that's the piece that's really important. Ra talked specifically about the power of aware beings who know how these things operate, operating in integrity and being part of the catalyst of change and betterment of the consciousness for everyone. And specifically speaking about emotional energy, but these are both at play right here and right now because the spleen center is housing fight or flight, instinct, survival. And so that's why I've decided to share this and focus on these two particular centers. So the emotional solar plexus operates on a roller coaster. It is the energy for emotional expression, creativity, the arts, pathos, romance, exuberance, everything in between. It's complex. And here's the part I think that's really important to know about the solar plexus. It's not a personal emotional center necessarily. It's emotional energy that operates in a wave and pushes out to the collective. So even though you're filtering it through you, this is energy that literally impacts everyone. It has highs, it has lows, and understanding where you're defined and which types of waves you experience. Some people will only have one type of wave. Some people will have a couple of types of wave. Some people are really extra fortunate and they get all of the waves because of the way that they're defined. Okay? Um, it's typically a regular feeling. It's something you can learn to track and anticipate and recognize triggers for. And the low end of the wave feels melancholic. It doesn't feel, and I'm going to use this word with lack of a better word, it doesn't feel joyful. It's the low end of that energy. And we tend to culturally look at people who are feeling bad and want to cheer them up. There is depth, there is clarity, and there is understanding that's going to come through that low part of the wave. So as we dive specifically into the solar plexus, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do to work through when I know I'm in a low part of my wave, when it's a deep wave. Okay? Good morning, Sherry. If you are emotional in definition, I want you to know that it is perfectly okay to embrace that full cycle of your wave. Don't hurry, don't try to fix it. And this class is going to be a time for you to learn how to make peace with that process. Decision making is best when you ride out your wave. And if you are emotionally defined, you are not designed to make spontaneous in the moment choices. We often do. We often experience a lot of that, I'm thinking like the old sales thing, act now and you'll save this much money and you better buy it and act now. And literally half of the population is not designed to make decisions in that way, right? You need time for your clarity in choosing, waiting for your internal click, and it's okay for you to not feel certain for a little while. And not feeling certain for a little while is just a normal state of you getting to your clarity. And there's nothing wrong with you. The waves fall into tribal, individual, and collective groupings. We'll talk about that as we talk specifically about the solar plexus. And you may have a combination of more than one, right? The splenic center, which is the other center that this next week is going to be talking about, is about survival, intuition, instinct, physical senses, timing, and our relationship with time, our immune system, our health, our well-being, our physical feel-good energy. And while it falls into the trifecta of the awareness centers, there's no energy there for taking action. It is survival-based, it is fear-based intuition. And some fears are healthy, right? There's a time where that serves us well. If we're out somewhere and we don't feel comfortable in a situation and we get out of there, maybe we've avoided being mugged or we've avoided some unfortunate, if you're splenically defined, you're probably one of those people who has walked into a place and I don't like it here and wanted to leave and immediately walked out. That's how the spleen operates. It tells you right here and right now if something is or is not correct for you, right? I'm trying to make sure if comments come up, I can see them. So some fear is healthy and it's protecting you. So let's be clear. Fear isn't inherently bad. We just need to be aware of what the fear is telling us and whether or not it requires us to even respond, right? So splenic gate fears are energy that can be pushed through and are typically not life-threatening situations, right? Clairsentience comes out of the spleen. that it's part of. I'm not going to get into that in this particular class. However, yes, there is actually a way to look at the mystic gates in human design and see where the root of all of the clairs are in your body. And so everyone has all of them, right? Everyone has all of them, but how they experience them is different based on their design. So there are folks who have consistent access to their clairsentience in a way that they can perceive, understand, and interpret these things really easily. And then there are folks who don't have consistent access to it, who sometimes get those hits and sometimes don't. And then when it's not consistent in that way, are they aware and responding as they should to that information when it's coming in, right? So it's not a matter of having or not having, it's the way that we experience it. And there actually is, it's called the mystic way. And there's a depiction of the chart that you can look at and see how those energies move as far as awareness and perception go. So that's absolutely positively a part of it. So is it different? No, it's looking at it through the lens of how does that physically actually happen in a person's body. So again, we're back to the fact that about 55% of people have a defined spleen center. So splenic people are designed to, the spleen operates in the moment, in the right now. And it's not necessarily an awareness for long-term planning. And so I'm going to use this analogy, and I'm, big on analogies, so I hope that this makes sense. The antelope is at the watering hole in the Serengeti. I'm assuming all of this is sort of kind of factually correct, right? And the antelope has the hair stand up on the back of its neck. Its spleen gets activated and it knows there's a predator. There's a lioness somewhere hiding out that's gonna pounce. So what does it do? Its spleen is like, hey, something is not right here. And the antelope looks around and takes off running. The antelope runs, sprints as far as it can, as fast as it can, but it's not running a marathon. It's get me away from this danger, and once I feel like I'm far enough away from the danger, I stop. And that's an analogy of kind of how the spleen works. This isn't long-term. This is survival and awareness in what's going on in me right now that's affecting me in the moment. And so listening to the voice of your intuitive awareness is important because it only speaks once you get an intuitive hit, and then you need to react. With lack of a better way to describe it, Sherry, yes. And so the spleen is called the fear center. And as we dive into each individual gate, we'll go through those themes so that you understand exactly what that's trying to tell you. And so again, it's intuition, it's awareness, it's in the moment. And I'm not sure how else we'll work on those words. We'll work on increasing that understanding. People with a defined spleen center typically have illness issues because they are not as in tune to their own immune system as they could be. They ignore early signs of illness, and they usually feel consistently good, and they're people who like to live in the moment. They are people you will find like the taste and smell aspects of things are important to them. If you're defined in your spleen, you're going to go to a restaurant and it's not going to smell good to you, or it's going to smell off, or it's going to feel off, and you're going to want to leave, right? Like, I don't want to eat here. That's part of your spleen, kind of intuitive knowing, fight, flight. Maybe you were going to have a bad experience. Maybe you were going to experience food poisoning, any number of things. I just really want to give you a good understanding of how these centers operate. And again, the only difference between someone who is defined somewhere and who is not is the consistent way in which they experience it, because everyone experiences all of it. This just helps you explain how, and helps you be more aware of how you're experiencing these things moment to moment. So people who are open spleen are here to be wise about survival, health, healing, time, intuition. They can be people who are medically intuitive, people who are psychic. And the difference is, number one, I'm not going to say you have to have one thing to be a thing. I'm going to say it's more visible in one than the other, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And the difference with an open spleen or the open centers is that you have the opportunity to experience the expressions of those energies in so many different ways. Versus if you're defined and you have a very specific way that that energy consistently comes in, right? One of my personal experiences, because I have an undefined spleen, but I live with someone who is defined, and I take in and amplify their feel-good energy, right? So when the spleen isn't in fear, it's a really feel-good, safe and secure feeling energy, and I get that in my partnership. And I get it in spades because I get to take it in and amplify it, because I don't have it naturally flowing for me on a regular, consistent basis. So I get to take it in, amplify it, and feel really safe and secure where I am, right? Caveat emptor, you can become attached to how good it feels being around someone with a defined spleen. Just an awareness you need to have. People with open spleens tend to be deeply intuitive, but that awareness of it isn't consistent, right? And when they're around people, we take in and amplify those intuitive hits. One of the other experiences that I have, and I have been blessed with a lot of spleenically defined people around me, is they have a very specific sense of timing, right? Spleenically defined people have their own timing, and it's always, always, always right for them. And I think I posted, if you didn't see it, take a look in the group, because I posted about traveling with my daughter with this defined spleen and how her intuition, it's always working out perfectly. And I'm always sitting back quietly frustrated because I don't have that and it doesn't make sense to me, but then everything always works out, right? And so where the expectation of someone with an open spleen is that they're chronically late, I am obsessively early for everything in order to avoid the discomfort of feeling late, if that makes sense. That's like my fix, is I'm always early. So as an example, and I don't know how many of you follow or do any of the things with Leah Steele, but there's the running conversation about the fact that she is always on Leah time. She's always on Leah time. Live streams always start a little bit late. Like everything runs on Leah time. And she is spleenically defined, and she lives in that moment to moment, and it works for her, and it works extremely well. If you don't know, she and I are family. And last summer, I was with her here in the States. Her father had passed away, and we were doing a memorial service. And I was going to help set up. It was at a lovely park. And at some point she texts me and she says, hey, it's me. We're just leaving. I know we said we're going to meet to set up, but I'm running a few minutes late. To which I responded, I'm already here. And she responded, of course you are, because we know how that works with one another. And that's just another example of kind of getting into the groove of knowing how these behaviors make you feel. And so then what are you doing to manage that for you, right? And it's important that everyone be comfortable sitting down with things that make them uncomfortable and work through them and face them, right? Because the taxing it puts on your immune system can be really significant if you're not being mindful about that, right? So those are the basic things I want to cover about those centers, about how those centers operate, and why we want to begin to learn to understand our individual center, right? I put the link in for genetic matrix. So what I would like for you to do, if you don't have your chart, beginning with tomorrow's session, we're going to be going very specifically one center at a time, and it's home gate, and then we'll work through the rest of the gates of the center. And then the other center, it's home gate, and by home gate, each one of these centers has a gate that specifically, I'm looking for my chart here on the wall, that specifically is its foundational place. I have so many different charts here, and I don't want to confuse you. But I don't have my genetic matrix version, so I'm going to share this with you, okay? So my chart. When you are looking at your chart, on the bottom right-hand side, this triangle will be your emotional solar plexus. On the bottom left-hand side, this triangle will be your spleen center. Now, as you can see from mine, I am defined in my emotional solar plexus and undefined in my spleen center. The difference between an undefined and an open center is that an open center does not have any gates highlighted, where you can see on my spleen center, there are some places where I consistently interpret information when it hits me in the spleen, right? So I hope that makes sense. There is in the Crushing It in Chaos group, and I'm gonna pull the file over and put it here, a one-pager I did to show you the basics of reading your chart, okay? But this is what we're talking about. This is what we're covering. This is what I want to help you get clear on. I'm pretty sure that I dropped the link for a YouTube video for Ekongar Satanguru Prasad for a mantra musical that lasts about 25 minutes. I find it extremely helpful in times of feeling overwhelmed and overworked. If over enters into any part of how you're feeling, it's something great to listen to help you center, come back into your body, and really be present. And we're going to do a lot of talking about that, about how to be present during an emotional wave, how to allow yourself to ride through the up and the down of it in a way that serves you. Because there's nothing wrong with being in the low of your wave. It just is. And an emotional wave for an emotionally defined person is simply information. So that is what I'm presenting for today to get us started. Again, I'm going to start dropping some other information linking a file of folks that I'm going to be referring you to with services that are complementary to what we're doing here, if that is something you're interested in. Especially working through a lot of these feelings. And I struggle sometimes calling them feelings because emotions are information and everyone has feelings, but the emotional wave is definitely its own animal. So does anyone have any questions about kind of the foundational information that you've received today? Because now is the part where I'd love to be far more interactive and answer any of those questions that you have.